Apple buried a streaming deal worth $2 billion, a decade-long content partnership that would have turned Apple TV Plus from a niche prestige platform into a true rival to Netflix and Disney overnight. And the reason they killed it is something Apple never wanted you to know. You were never supposed to hear this. Because the deal didn't die by accident, and it didn't die because the numbers stopped working. It died because someone inside Apple decided the $2 billion was the least important number in the room. What actually killed it was ego, timing, and a boardroom fight over who would get the credit. Here's how it started. In 2019, right as Apple TV Plus was about to launch with a modest slate and a modest budget, Apple's services division quietly approached a major legacy studio, one sitting on a library of decades-old franchises nobody else had figured out how to modernize. The pitch was simple. Apple puts up the money, the studio puts up the intellectual property, and together they build an exclusive content pipeline built to last 10 years. Eddie Q, Apple's longtime services chief, reportedly championed it personally. Internally, people called it the deal that would make Apple TV Plus relevant on day one instead of 5 years later. By early 2020, it wasn't a rumor anymore. Term sheets existed. Lawyers on both sides had been read in. Sources close to the negotiation put the total value at just over $2 billion across 10 years, production financing, marketing commitments, and a guaranteed slate of at least 6 original series tied to franchises the studio hadn't touched since the 1990s. A signing date was set for that spring. Executives on both sides were already briefing their boards. This wasn't a maybe. This was a deal that existed, that had a number attached to it, and that had been greenlit in every way that matters before a single camera rolled. And then it started falling apart, not because of the pandemic, though that's the excuse that got fed to reporters later. It fell apart because of something happening inside Apple's own leadership structure, a power struggle nobody was supposed to see. Two competing factions inside Apple's content division wanted credit for the platform's breakout hit, and a decade-long dependency on an outside studio's IP threatened both of their stories. If Apple TV Plus succeeded because of someone else's franchise, that wasn't the narrative either side wanted walking into their next performance review. Here's the part they really buried. The deal wasn't killed because Apple couldn't afford $2 billion. This is a company that spends more than that on stock buybacks in a single afternoon. It was killed because Tim Cook's team had just started pitching Apple TV Plus internally as proof that Apple didn't need anyone else's ecosystem to win, the same way the iPhone didn't need Nokia's App Store to win. A 10-year, $2 billion reliance on a legacy studio's franchises directly undercut that story. So the executives who'd spent a year building the internal case for total originality quietly started starving the deal of oxygen, delaying sign-off meetings, reassigning the internal champions, letting the studio's patience run out instead of formally saying no. By the time COVID hit in March 2020, it gave everyone a clean, blameless excuse to let something die that had already been strangled from the inside for months. No press release, no leak, just silence, and a studio left holding term sheets nobody would finalize. Think about what that decision actually cost. If that deal had closed, Apple TV Plus wouldn't have spent its first 3 years searching for an identity. It would have launched with a built-in franchise universe capable of competing directly with Disney Plus and its Marvel and Star Wars slates from month one. The legacy studio, meanwhile, might have found a second life instead of quietly shrinking into licensing deals for competitors. Instead, both companies spent years and untold hundreds of millions chasing separately what they could have built together for $2 billion on a 10-year runway starting in 2020. So the next time you hear that Apple TV Plus just took a while to find its footing, remember there was a version of this story where it never had to. The deal existed. The money was real. And it wasn't competition or a pandemic that ended it. It was two men inside the same company who couldn't agree on whose name would be on the win. So what happened to the studio on the other side of that dead term sheet? And did Netflix know exactly what Apple had just thrown away?